Hi, welcome to class. We're the only two right now, but the other ones will show up eventually, right? I hate my life. I hate my life. And Professor Sunreis Productions! Hello class, Professor Sunreis here. The day has finally come of me finishing my kind of long anticipated video. It is a little shorter than I've promised you guys because I did a few changes here and there in the process of making it, but it is finally here, the ultimate guide / introduction, however you want to call it, to Dragon Link. Like a lot of times when I plan on doing some combo tutorials, I tend to kick them out because I just don't think they fit the type of content that I want to make. Instead, near the end of the video, I will be just going over a few tips and tricks while comboing off, things you just want to think about when comboing off, while also going through some test hands as a B-roll so that you can just see how I actually play out certain hands, giving a few tips and tricks here and there. But the bulk of the video will just be an introduction to Dragon Link. I will be going over all of the different engines that I'm playing, that you could be playing, engines which could have some potential in the future so that you can keep them in mind, and then just some tips and tricks with them over the whole run. Overall, I think if you want to get good at Dragon Link, or if you want to just take a look at the deck, will be a great video for you. As you can see, this is pretty long, so definitely get something to drink, maybe play something on the side, and just listen to me just rambling almost one complete hour about Dragon Link, the deck that I love. And without further ado, don't forget to like and subscribe, leave some feedback down in the comment section below, and let's get right into the video. So, let's get into that tutorial, and I think the most important thing to know about Dragon Link, or like any deck in general, is just to get to know the deck, each and every single engine that there is, and all of the roles that they fulfill. And we will start out with the Bystial package. As basics, Bystial package would look something like this. And then you have the Regained and the Beast. I'm gonna exclude Branditude because I don't think it is really worth playing. Maybe if there's like a very specific format, you could play it. It's here on the screen so that you can read it, but I don't think this format will ever come as long as Branded Beast is a card. But what I like to do is also play two more Serenia. So this is the Bystial package which I'm running. These are all of the consistency cards and the good cards, and these are all of the utility cards and the payoffs. And what this engine does for the deck, it is insane. It's the heart and soul of the deck. It is the grind game because it tries to loop Magnum with a combination of Regained and Heretic Seal, so it gives you a surge in every turn, which is insane. But not only that, they're also really good extenders. They basically work with all of the normal summons, and they give you a really good body on the board, which is very good because Dragon Link has one very generic goal, and it is to get 2 dragons on the board. Because you want to go to Romulus, and then Romulus gets the whole deck together. And these cards are even better with that, not because they only get you to the Romulus, but they also have insane synergy with Romulus, because once you get a Ceremony into the graveyard that can send a Lobelian, then you can use your Safred, which you can send with the Romulus, or you can do it the other way around. If you have a Safred in the graveyard, you can use the Romulus and Ravine package to send a Ceremony or Lobelian, and then you get to the whole package. So this deck plays extremely well with the whole game plan of turreting into a Romulus, and then just taking all of the engines out of the deck which you don't already have, dump them into the graveyard, and then you have access to that. So these are the perfect cards to turbo into Romulus. They're also a very nice disruption against anything which is light and dark, and give you inherently a very good matchup against those decks. If they only use lights and darks, but they don't really use them in the graveyard, it's still fine because then they're always alive and you can brick on them. But once the opponent interacts with something in the graveyard, which is light or dark, these cards just become inherently super broken and one of the best cards in the deck. So like I said, these are all of the consistency tools, and then you have Baldrake and Drewsworm. Drewsworm plays really well with Branded Beast, giving you a double pop. Also generically really good in the grind game, or like in breaking a board, because it can trade 2 for 1. And Baldrake, while a lot of people are cutting it, in my opinion this card is super important in not only simplified game states, where you get disrupted a lot and you still want to somehow end on disruption with the Magnum, then you can search a Baldrake and then you have like a random body on the board, and then you can go for a Baldrake, at least making you survive, because most of the times the opponent will then go in the battle phase. But not only that, it also is really good if you have a lot of plays already, and if you, for example, have the Drewsworm Heartron, then you can search the Baldrake to have even more disruptions, so that you guarantee to stop your opponent from playing. So in my opinion, I'm a huge believer of the Baldrake. It's just a one-off. It is also just like I said, an extender. So in my opinion, it is mandatory to play, but that is up to you guys. This is just the basic Bystial engine for you. Next things are the Chaos cards. Pretty standard. These are just your play starter. You have the Safred, you have the Chaos Base, and then you have the Black Dragons and like the White Dragon. and then you also have a levy with it. This is at least what I'm playing. We will talk about additional engines and additional cards you could play later on. Safer is just the best card in the deck. Gives you access into 2 dragons, same as Chaos Base, so these get you into those 2 dragons, which you really want to get into because you want to turbo into Romulus to get to all of the other engines, like we said. But Safer is insane at that because not only gives it access to that, if you have a good hand, you can get Safer back into the graveyard, then you can use its graveyard effect in conjunction with, like I said, these guys to get into the Bystial package, which is the most important engine you have, and it's the strongest engine you have. But not only that, Safer is also really good at grinding, because once you're like in a turn 2 or 3, you can get this back into the graveyard super easily with the way your deck plays. Search it with Magnemite, like have it in the banish pile, summon it out from there. You know it. So this is an insane grind game. It's also just a level 4 light, so that you can go into Chaos Angel to cheese some wins or to break boards. It is just really insane. Chaos Base, same. It plays a little more into hand traps, but it basically does the same thing as the Safer, just not having the Safer in there. These are just generic, very good dragon extenders, which can play into a lot of stuff and can extend into the more resource intensive extra deck bosses, but that's pretty standard. And then you have the 1 levy. I think it is very important to play at least 1 dark search target for Chaos Base. Most of them are level 8, like the 2 good ones in my opinion are level 8, so there's inherently synergy with Safer because you can pitch them to search Rebellion, giving you a little more access into that. But it is super important to have that with Chaos Base because there will be times where you have one of these hard drawn and you have a Chaos Base plus a pitch, and sometimes you'll have to pitch a light for it. And you'd rather just have a search target there, so the Chaos Base is always alive. So having 2 search targets is really important, but Levy is also just generically the best card because it's alive going first and it can trade 1 for 1. All of the other cards like Chaos Emperor are like super hard to get value off going first, next to impossible without going for like a lot of hoops, so that you at least go like neutral with it and like at least could activate it. Levy can just rip 1 card out of the hand, which can be like very bad. You will never truly know how good it was unless your opponent tells you, but at least it's a 1 for 1 trade. Like, just from a theory standpoint, it's always gonna be decent. But going second, and like in a simplified game set, this card is where it shines. Like, if you resolve your combo and then you can search in your opponent's turn with the Magnemite, you summon out with either Regained or a Seal, you search the Levy. It is insane at breaking boards. Your opponent probably won't have the strongest board, and then just having that 1 Levy there to force out the negates that they have, or you can maybe even completely kill their board if they don't have a negate, or you can dodge it with a Branded Beast or with a Regained. This card is just insane at that. Also plays really good into backrow decks, which there are a lot of right now. But most importantly, it is alive going first. While it can be a hassle to get into, it is there, and it's also just another target which you can add off your Safered. So if you have really everything, Ravine can snap this. You have the Safered, you banish the Safered, you add back the Levy, and then you can rip 1 out of the hand, and then you can even tribute your Rebellion over it to get into your Bystial spell traps. So in my opinion, Levy is generically the best one. There will be matters and will be times where Chaos Emperor is better, but currently it is not like that in my opinion. So lastly, there's the Rocket Engine, and ever since this Pada came out, this engine has been overperforming for me. So we have 3 Quick Launch, which is mandatory. One of the reasons you want to play close to 40 again is that having access to Quick Launch is so strong. Not only is it really good into the meta right now with a lot of targeting stuff running around, but also just really good at pushing through boards and giving you access into Synchro plays, which are so strong thanks to this Pada. Then you have at least 2 Tracer. I play 3, but this one can be cut. The Caliber can be cut as well, but it's super strong right now, and a lot of people are playing it, so in my opinion it is like part of the engine now. Then you have a Recharger, you have the apps. Noctovision can be part of that as well, but we'll exclude it for now. And then you have Boot Sector Ravine. Like I said, Quick Launch is the best card. It gives you so many pushes. Tracer is just insane because it gives you access into another one, so you can extend quite effectively. You can also dodge all sort of targeting disruption. Caliber is just a tuner you can summon off the Tracer. It does have effects, but honestly, it never came up for me that you could summon this out of into a zone at dark points to. A Dark Link monster, just because you have Boot Sector for that anyways. Recharger is insane. Once you are able to recycle Striker Dragon, Recharger is just broken because it can basically revive, like any level 4 or lower dragon basically acts as a monster reborn for any of the dark monsters you have in the graveyard. So if you board get outed and you have a Borderland in there or a Dispada, you have a Striker Dragon in the extra deck, you normal summon any dragon, link it off into Striker Dragon effect, target Recharger effect, pitch it itself, target the Striker Dragon, and then you can revive the Disparter, the Borrowland, the Red Eyes Darkness Metal Dragon, whatever you need, and then you can just combo off of that. One of the big reasons where you might want to go for a regained playstyle and not a branded beast playstyle like I am is exactly this scenario where you turbo into that, you have the Striker Dragon back in the extra deck because you recycle it in your turn on the opponent's turn, and then you can just combo off in turn 3 of that, which is really strong. At one Router, the more rockets you play, the more broken this one gets. This can come from a brick to one of the best extenders, depending on the amount of rockets we play, because I am playing more rockets than most people are, like at least one more, sometimes even 2 more. This card is a really solid extender in my opinion, but most important is the Ravine target of choice to get access into the rocket engine, because if this goes into the graveyard, you get to search a rocket. So this is really important, but like I said, it can be a brick, but it can be one of the most broken extenders. Having Chaos Space plus this is basically the best thing you can ask for. And then you have the field spells. Boot Sector is insane. It is one of the most important cards and the most skill testing cards there is. Like, depending on how much value you put on the Boot Sector can be really huge in you winning a game or losing a game. In simplified game states, just reviving rockets out of the graveyard every turn is really strong, especially now that we have good Synchro targets again. Like having a Bystial plus a Tracer is just insane. It has so much value. Baron, Disparter, Chaos Angel, you name it, you have so many good tools to go into. So Boot Sector is really important. It is part of a lot of the main combos to get rockets into the on the field from the hand most of the time in those combos. But in most of the combos you are required to destroy it, so a lot of times you won't have it in a grind game, but you will always have to think about if you can somehow save this. Maybe you don't use it because you don't commit it, maybe you can pop the Ravine. Getting most value out of this is going to be one of the most skill testing things you can do as a Dragon Pilot, but it's gonna be one of the most rewarding things you can do, just because this card has so much value in a grind game. And then of course the Ravine. Like I said, this is like a very toolbox deck, and having access to the graveyard, especially with how all of the engines play with Sacred and the Bystials, this is an insane card. It is a little resource intensive, requiring that discard, and you probably won't be having it on the board anyways for a long time, so it's not like that you can get a lot of value out of this sticking on the board. The discard definitely hurts, and there will be metas where you don't want to play this, but in every meta where this card is safe to resolve going first, so no Ogre in the meta, for example, this is an insane card for this deck. Lastly, we have this one Noctovision. In my opinion, this is a very good card to play right now, and it plays really well with the playset that I have, which is a very control-heavy build, because this is just an extender which replaces itself. So it basically has the most value out of all of the other extenders, apart from the Bystials, of course. A lot of people aren't playing this, but the main reason you want this is a level 7 target, so that your Sacred can pitch Router for its effect, search Noctovision, that you still have 2 bodies on the board, plus that you already have the rocket engine tied up, and that you have a way to get Router out of the hand. Because like I said, Router can be one of the most bricky cards in the deck, but it can also be one of the best cards and one of the best extenders if you have its enablers. And because I am playing so many in like all of the rocket names we already have, plus then 6 Chaos Space / Safers, we have so many ways of getting this out of our hand. So this can be one of the best things which we can draw, and Noctovision just helps with that. And like I said, it's just a very good generic extender as a one-off. The graveyard effect doesn't really matter right now because we're not playing Tidying. Just a really solid card, and I can only recommend trying it again. A lot of people are cutting it because they're going for like the very combo heavy variants and ending on Borrowland, and it doesn't really do all too much in there. But in my opinion, a very solid card. Of course, you also be wanting to play some non-engine in there. I am currently playing this package ever since German ads. Overall, I'd say you probably don't want to go above 12 non-engines. I'm currently at 43 cards with 9 non-engines, which is not optimal, but because the deck inherently is so gassy and the Bystials can be very good non-engine tools as well, you don't really need all too much non-engine. You're fine with just having 1 to 2 card non-engines. You can even break boards without a non-engine at all. So don't get baited and play more. I'd say 9 is the minimum you should have to play, and you can go up to 12, at least in a 40-ish range. Of course, you can go above that and play 60, but that's a whole different beast. Just be sure that 9 non-engine slots usually should be the range where you want to be at. Now that we got the whole main deck covered and all of the main engines, let's take a look at the main extra deck staples you will be having. And that is Striker Dragon. Striker Dragon gives the rocket engine all it needs, searches Boot Sector, and then you have the Recharger line. Can also give you access into the Tracer again. Because you maybe normal Tracer, go into Striker Dragon, then you do some more plays, you can pop something on the field, or even the Striker Dragon, get the Tracer back. Super important now that you have good Synchro tools again. Before the Spada came out, this card wasn't as crazy, or the rocket engine in general wasn't as crazy, but ever since this Spada came out, this engine is overperforming. Then you have Romulus, the heart and soul of the deck, the most important card in the extra deck. At least when going first, this card searches Ravine and also has an additional effect that it can summon a dragon out of the hand. If you summon a dragon out of the extra deck into its zone. Doesn't come up all too crazy often because I'm not playing the Borderland combo version, but if you summon a Piste in it, you can summon like a Tracer out of your hand and then use it. You have to use it for a Synchro summon, I believe. So that come up, it's another way to get your rockets out of the hand. For example, if your Boot Sector got stopped, you got Ash or you got Imperm on the Striker Dragon. Can be very helpful. Doesn't come up all too crazy often for me because I'm playing a seals based gameplay, not a Borderland combo based gameplay. But like I said, Romulus get the whole engine together, the whole deck. Just it being able to tutor out any dragon and us maximizing on all the dragons which we want to see. And then we'll probably have 2 out of Tracer, Seyfert, and like Serenia, Magnamut / Lubellion. And then we can always just send the third one which we are missing with the Romulus, and then we have everything which we want. Then we have Seal, at least one is mandatory, just the boss monster, at least in my opinion, of the deck. It just is the perfect combination of disruption and follow-up. You use 2 bodies to get into this. You get 1 form of disruption with the bounce, and you get 1 form of follow-up with it summoning a dragon out of the deck, which is 99% of the time going to be Magnamut. Just from a theory standpoint, you use 2 bodies to get into this. You get 2 bodies out of it. 1 as disruption, 1 for your own. This is insane, and then it becomes just super versatile. It forces out battle phases so often because it's so easy to clear in a battle phase. We are a control deck or like a mid-range deck at heart, so if we survive a turn, we will just crush them in the turn 3 and they will stand no chance. If they don't do that, Seal just is one of the best disruptions there is because it's a non-targeting bounce, so you can just use it whenever you want and the opponent's gonna have a hard time dealing with it. So it's basically a lose-lose situation from the get-go. Then you can also, if the opponent doesn't really have a lot of gas, but they have a lot of baits, for example like Evenly, which could punish this deck, you can also bounce your own stuff and turn that 1 disruption, 1 follow-up into double follow-up. So you'll always get the worth just from a card advantage out of it, and because how it's worded and how it interacts with the opponent's engines, most of the time it's going to be a huge tempo loss for the opponent to deal with this as well. Overall, just an insanely broken card, and definitely could get limited to 1 or even banned. This card is broken. Then we have the Piste line with Piste, Triple Burst, and Borderland. In my opinion, everyone should play these. These are insane. Borderland is one hell of a boss monster, and a lot of decks struggle outing with it. It does have its weaknesses though, which is why I'm not going for turn 1, but rather turn 3. And then Piste plus Triple Burst is just the best way to turbo into it. More on that into the combo video, or like combo part of the video. But Piste overall is just a really good card because it gives you access into all of the cards which you had in the graveyard on the banish pile, and especially because I use it in turn 3, you can get stuff like your Magnamut, your Dru's Worm, your Baldrake, your Seyfert. If you play the Black Metal Dragon, like your Red MD, stuff like that, you can get all of that access into with Piste again, which is really helpful, of course. Then in my opinion, mandatory to play is Dark. Dark is an insane card, especially with the Borderland line, because as you can see, we wanted to go with Piste Triple Burst into that. And Dark is like a 2 monsters turn into a Triple Burst. So all we need is 2 monsters to go into a Dark, and then a level 4 or lower God Dragon to go into Piste. And then we already have everything which we need for the Borderland line, and Dark just really helps with that. But not only that, Dark is like basically the link 2 which we want to go into going second all the time, even if he's not alive, to summon something out of the graveyard, because it helps with breaking boards, because you can just summon it, crash it, search the levy because it's actually a search target, which is absurd, and then you can crack the rest of the board. So going second, most of the times the first 2 bodies, at least the way I play, will go into a Dark, crash it, empty up the EMZ, make a levy, get rid of most of the opponent's board, and then make a seal and control the game off that, which really helps, and Dark is just insane with that. But not only that, like I said, it helps with just link climbing in general if you play the extra deck tools for that, and Borderland link climbs especially. Now for the Synchros, Savage is mandatory. Tracer can turn into this quite easily, and then you have an Omni Negate to protect all of the board. You can protect Floodgates, which you side in. You can protect your Seals, your Branded Beast from Imperms, from Lightning Storms, Feather Dusters, Cosmic, which can really hurt this deck because it is kind of backrow focused. So Savage is just a very welcome addition. Dispada, one of the best Synchro 10s ever printed. This card is just absurdly insane at pushing through boards. It having a very early disruption, nip protection, it can recycle stuff out of the banished pile, it can extend, it's a big beat stick, it's a disruption in the opponent's turn either via a pop or a negate. It's just completely insane what this card can do. It also has inherent synergy because it's a Bystial, so you can always freely tribute it off for Rebellion, get Regain, plus in your turn, and then Regain can summon the Dissipata back. This is an insane card. And that's basically it for all of the mandatory cards which you want to play in the extra deck, at least in my opinion. Like, this is the core of the extra deck. At least in my opinion, you don't need more than this. This is all you ever really need. The rest is just extra, and I will be going over my choices of what I am playing for the extra cards. First of all, we got a Seal. I really like Seal control, and a lot of times you will be using 2 if you play very Seal-focused gameplay, so 2 is very good. Then we have a Chaos Angel, a very good tower monster, can be very good at breaking boards, going second, and simplified game state. This can come up. A lot of people are cutting it. And at German Nats, for example, I didn't do it a lot, but now at a local level, which I'm mostly playing right now, and not so much online currently. Chaos Angel is also performing really well, and it comes up a lot of times at very simplified game state, or as like very first options at breaking boards. Forcing out back row with this can be really good, especially if when a combination with Dru's Worm, so that you can chain block your Dru's Worm, so they cannot respond to it with monster effects, and then they just have to imperm this Chaos Angel, but the Dru's Worm could resolve freely. So this card is really good for exactly that scenario. It doesn't come up all too often, but like I said, also very good tool just in general at breaking boards or just OTKing, because it's a banished 3.5k attack together with Dispater that's already game most of the time, like almost just 1 additional body, right? So Chaos Angel is good for that. Baron, together with Quick Launch, because we're almost playing close to 40, this card comes up a lot going second, not so much going first. It definitely can come up if you want to save your boot sector launch, because you always want to end on an Omni Negate, at least optimally, of course. And for example, if you have the tools, you have a lot of Bystials, you have a lot of Rocket Engine, you can go into a Baron, sometimes even with a Savage, by the way, just so that you can save your boot sector for more follow-up, so that you can turn your Bystials in hand, which maybe aren't too crazy in that matchup, which can be follow-up as well, but boot sector is way better follow-up most of the time. So you turn your Bystials from the disruption into this as a disruption, and then the Bystials which were follow-up will be transferred into the boot sector, which will be follow-up, if that makes sense. So definitely can come up, but also just going second, having a Bystial, summon Quick Launch in Stamper phase, and then they have to do something in the Stamper phase already, or else main phase you make a Baron, and then you immediately pressure a lot of the board, especially also back row, which is super helpful. This deck has so many ways of pushing through back row. It is insane. Then play Skylight. Runic is in the format right now, so this is a time win condition, but also really good Synchro 8 card to just get into and break apart a whole opponent's board, especially with how we play like into Dark, because Dark can also search Tracer, and then you can just make a like Dark, search Tracer, make Skylight, pop the whole opponent's board, and we can also just tribute it off for Rebellion, then play Bystial afterwards. Really good card, and it's a time win condition. With Runics in the format, ever since the Nats, I think I went into time like 4 or 5 times, and was always at the mercy of my opponent not slow playing me, and my opponent bricking, or me just drawing that nib. I think it's very important we have a time win condition card right now. One of the few things I would have changed from the Nats list is that. We have a Tomb. Especially the more Bystials you play, this card becomes more and more insane. This is just LP with extra steps. Sometimes it's less steps, sometimes it's more steps. It's a little more hand trap fragile than LP is, but this card is insane. Just summoning the Sacred out of the deck, summoning the Absolrata out of the deck. It's just insane. Like, why wouldn't you play a card which summons a dragon out of the deck if it's a very relatively low investment? Just 2 Bystials is not the end of the world to go into. And then lastly, I'm playing 1 Quad Barrel. This is part of a package which I'm going to talk about later, but Quad Barrel by itself is a super generic tool. It just can be a discard to destroy a face-up monster, so it can be a way to get a light out of your hand if you really need that. It can be an out to just annoying bodies. You can just get rid of them, and then you can maybe link climb into something else afterwards. So it does have the toolboxy kind of character, but it's also just in an insane meta card right now. There are a lot of link monsters right now, and then you can just make Quad Barrel, pop them, and then you can summon 2 rockets out of your graveyard again, and then go into your Savage afterwards. So this can be kind of free, because you break your board and then you can make your own board with it. So Quad Barrel has been overperforming. I've been making this a lot, especially because I'm playing so many rockets. This just comes up so often right now. It is insane. Now let's take a look at more generic extra deck cards which you could be playing. One of them is an Ipmascar. Just having the ability to turn any 2 bodies into a meaningful disruption can be really good, especially because it has inherent synergy with Regained and Dru's Worm. where we can get bodies on board for free, which actually do something if they are linked off. Also can be really helpful to like dodge targeting disruption on a Magnum in the opponent's turn. Doesn't come up all too often, but can be good. But more importantly, I wouldn't probably not say more importantly, but also importantly, this is a generic link 2 which you can go into. Sometimes you will be missing that. A generic link 2 can just come up a lot of times if you just have to link it off, for example, into a triple burst line and you already went through your dark. Maybe you are dark locked already, so the seal is not an option. So having a second dark link 2 can be something. If you play around it accordingly, it probably shouldn't come up all too often, but it can come up. And like I said, Masquerena is like a very generic disruption tool. Also a reason a lot of Bystial control decks are on it, which are lacking all of the rocket tools, because it's just a really good disruption. Back when I was just playing Bystial control, Ipmascar seal was a really strong end board, and in the days of Pepega Ruler Dragonling, I think like Nat's format last season or like before that, Seal Masquerena was the most impactful end board that could do, because it's very low investment, but it offers a lot of disruption already. So don't underestimate this, and definitely don't sleep on Masquerena. It's a very good card. Then the next tool is Unicorn Access Code. The more back row that is in the format, the more I would play this. If a deck like Rika picks up a lot of popularity, and decks in general which have like very valuable field spells, which you definitely want to get rid of, a package like this can be very impactful. But because I didn't go into this a single time in the German ads, I think I maybe summoned Access Code Talker once just for a free OTK, but there were other lines where you could OTK as well probably, and then Unicorn never. I just didn't really feel comfortable playing these anymore, because if you don't go into them, you probably shouldn't be playing them in the first place. But these are just generically so good. Unicorn being a discard, same as Quad Bubble. It's always good to have a discard somewhere in the deck, in the extra deck, just because it can be helpful to get lights out of the deck, out of the hand into the graveyard. The deck struggles a little bit with that, having lights in the grave. So Unicorn just helps with that. And most importantly, like I said, they play into back row quite effectively. At the start of the format, I was playing, having like this extra deck push, like without Masquerena, this extra deck push against everything which was back row, and then I had the Borderland extra deck push against everything which was monster based, and it was working out quite well. But like I said, I didn't really go into these nearly as often anymore, because maybe I got better at the deck or the meta shifted, I don't know. But these don't really come up all too often. But if, for example, you don't have a Chaos Angel, you don't have a Baron, but you have these are like a very good substitution for that, and they can definitely come up crazy often. The last thing, which is very generically applicable into that deck, is an Evil Swarm Nightmare. It might sound crazy, but at least currently it is super strong to just make this with the Tracer Summon, especially because it's basically an FTK against Kashtira if they don't have the out. Just booking the first 2 summons is insane against them. Reason why I'm not a huge fan of it is that it rarely will ever come up realistically, because if you have a full board already, you'd much rather, even against Kashtira, just make a Savage to protect your end board from any sort of board breakers, because if the opponent didn't hand trap you and you made full board, they probably will have a board breaker, and if they don't have a board breaker, you will probably win. And then if you don't really have anything, yeah, Rocket make Evil Swarm Nightmare could come up, but I'd much rather just make a seal and maybe save my boot sector for follow-up and control my game off that. Sometimes this will be game winning, of course, against Kashtira, but you will never really know, and it plays into non-engine like it's nothing. But it's definitely a very good call right now to play. Maybe if there was a meta where this would be very good against the 2 top Moss decks, not only against Kashtira, but against the next best thing as well, you could play this. But right now, I don't think it is exactly the time. But if you, for example, like I said, don't really have all of the extra deck tools like Chaos Angel, Baron, because they're too expensive, maybe test out the Evil Swarm Nightmare. It can be a game winner for sure. So that's a whole lot of theory, and there will be coming more, because we've talked about extra deck engines or extra deck cards which you could play, but there are also a few main deck cards and main deck staples which you could be playing. And the most recent one, of course, is the Assault Synchron tuning package. You have tuning, which can search Assault Synchron, which plays insanely well with a lot of combos. You can also play a Rocket Synchron with them, just because it's another searchable card, and this is just a searchable normal summon. It also can come up in simplified game states or as a turn 3 follow-up target, stuff like that. So Rocket Synchron is definitely not a dead card. It can at worst be a Dragon normal summon. At best, it can be your extender or like your search target for turn 3. You will having to play an Exile Synchron with that. And this is also the reason why I think this might not be the most optimal thing to play, just because you will be having 3 cards at maximum, maybe 4, maybe 5, but realistically it's only going to be 3 because the deck is super tight right now and playing more is just super hard, at least in a Dragon Link version. So you'll be having 3 to 4 main deck cards in like 42, 43, maybe 45-ish main deck cards, and you will be having 1 extra deck slot, which you basically can only access if you have any of the 4 cards hard drawn. You cannot really search them at all, and having just this 1 extra deck slot, which you can only access with like 4 or 5 cards out of 45, doesn't seem all too crazy. Add to that Assault Synchron is only really good in like 2 to 3 card combos, where Assault Synchron extends these combos into something very good, but it doesn't add any very decent 2-card combos apart from like with Lubellion, but that's also not too crazy and doesn't really play with the main game plan the deck already had. And I don't think this deck is like, this engine is good to play right now. Maybe if you lose a few Magnamids on the way, or if Seal gets banned and we have to go for like a full-on combo version, Assault Synchron could come up more and could be a good addition. But right now, with how Seal is so broken and just Seal control, even Dragon Link is, at least in my opinion, the way to go. I don't think you have or should play these right now. Next things which a lot of people are on right now, which I am not on, is the Black Metal package with the Red as Darkness Metal Dragon. Just a very good normal summon which gets you 2 bodies on the board. The problem is that it only does exactly that. The bodies don't really have any good levels or like lights or tuners. They don't give you a lot. Red as Darkness Metal Dragon is a very good card in simplified game sets. Having access into it in the graveyard or banish pile and recycling it from there is very good, that's for sure. But other than that, this engine does exactly one thing, and that is getting 2 cards on the field. Of course, we want to get into that, but because we play so many extenders already with all of the Bystials, you don't really rely on having that, and then all of the downsides from Black Metal come up. It is really bad into Shifter. Like, normal summoning a Tracer is way better against Shifter than normal summoning a Black Metal, because suddenly this is just a 1 body on the field, which isn't even a tuner or gets you into anything worthwhile with it being level 4. So in theory, this card is really good at going first, but going second, it just starts to crumble. It also is really bad against Book of Moons, Book of Eclipses, which are plenty right now. It also really loses to spot removal, where Tracer is just way better at playing into a board going second. This card is played by a lot of people because they are more on the borrow end pushes for going first, not so much for the Seal control gameplay, which I am currently running. So if you don't plan on going for a Seal pass playstyle and want to go for Borderland, or like I said, Seal gets banned, Black Metal can be a very good addition and will be played in the near future again, once we maybe lose a few cards for dragons, if they ever get hit on the ban list, of course. But Black Metal is like so close for getting into the deck. It's just not quite there because Tuners and Rocket's engine in general is just too strong right now. Then there is the Chaos Emperor, an insane card, and just from a value standpoint, this is the best thing you can search in a turn 3. Like, Magnamid, search this, activate it, get one of the banished Bystials which you prepared before that, maybe a Magnamid or maybe like a Lubellion, get that back, you have that follow-up, that you have a free body on the board which you can summon. It's a level 8, so you could play some rank 8 tools, which I didn't go over in the extra deck things because there aren't really any good rank 8s right now, but maybe once there ever come out any good ones, you could definitely play them again. Just a big beat stick. It has an effect of a board wipe, which is very resource intensive, but it definitely comes up sometimes to push for the last few life points, for example. If you read the card perfectly fine, you gotta read this a few times or else you will maybe lose a regional final. Anyways, this card is super strong if you know how to use it, and 60 cards you can definitely play this. In 40 cards, Levy is just a little better right now, and because the deck inherently is so strong right now and it is so grindy already, it doesn't need that extra grind. Maybe if it gets hit a few times, Magnamid goes to 1, you can recycle your Magnamid with this card. Would get more value, but right now, like a lot of these tools, it's not really needed because the deck is... The last package which I have in real cards, in which I won't be going into Dueling Book for, is the Dragoonity package. Because Ravine can not only search or send Absolute, it can also search Remus. Then you can pitch the Remus to search another Ravine. Ravine can then search Legatus. Then you can summon the Remus out. You can summon the Legatus. You can summon the Remus, make it Synchro 8, and then go into Gaydurk. And Gaydurk has the ability to add a level 4 or lower dragon or winged beast type, and then pitch one dragon or winged beast type from the hand. So you can search Tracer and pitch something else. You can search Seyfried and pitch it again. Overall, lots of stuff can be done with this engine. so much that it's probably not gonna be worth it to explore in this video exactly, but maybe once the Dragoonity package gets some new support, we could go over that in an additional video. But just have in mind, or maybe buy these cards if you want to. They definitely have their places. In 60 cards you can even just play a Ramos, even play this just for the lols. They can be kind of good, but in 40 cards there's just no space for it right now. You also have the Dangerous Dragon, a very beautiful card, especially in combination with Quad Barrel. If you play these two, I think safer than like any other cards which put 2 dragons on the board, so Black Metal, Chaos Space, and Save, to become 1 card's Borderland Savages. It just requires a shit ton of extra deck resources because you have to go through these next to all of the other cards. Can work out if Borderland does an auto win, but because Borderland inherently is so weak against non-engine, it's not really worth it right now. But with so many other things, if dragons or when dragons get hit at any point, and the hits definitely hurt the control playstyle more than the combo playstyle, cards like these could become more worthwhile, because then you have to shift your power and your focus from all of these very good mid-rangey control-ish type things to a more combo focused one, and the Lingerers could come up in that. So for the other engines which didn't make the cut for a main deck right now, there's the Dragonmaid engine, which is a really good target for a seal if you get Nibiru. So once Nibiru gets more popular, it is really good. It also plays really well with Hot Red Dragon Archfiend Abyss to play around a Dark Ruler if you have the tidying. Doesn't really work right now because there's no way to make Hot Red Dragon Archfiend Abyss, but if there comes in line for that again, maybe with another good Synchro A tool which you can go into, and tidying becomes a good pick because of Nibiru becoming popular, then this engine could be played. Next, there's the Darkest Diablos line, maybe with Melody of the Awakening Dragon. So if there's a target for this card with these things, which is a play starter, you could play Melody as a play starter, and as a second target you can have Diablos or Lavinia, and then you have a very nice target because this can just hand loop the opponent next to the Levy. It's a recurable body for a grind camp because you can always trigger this out of the graveyard if you use your Lebellian summon, so that's a pretty good thing. If rank 8s become better because there's a good rank 8, similar to Chaos Emperor, you could go for this approach and play more of rank 8s. Then there's the Strudo. There's just no Synchro tool to go into with this. It's just a level 7 extender, so you can have this as the spot for Noctivision, but because there's no good Synchro to go into with this, it's worthless. And like the most experimental things right now are any level 7s which turbo into Raid Raptor Arsenal Falcon, because Kashtira engine can do this with Summon Fenrir, search Rysart, normal it, use its effect, you are not XD locked, and then you can go into Arsenal Falcon, summon out a Sephiroth out of the deck, and then you have the ability to loop Ravine and go through all of your Dragon engine. It's very combo intensive and choose through most of your hands, so you need a lot of good discards, but there definitely is a start of a deck pile in there. You also have Pile Armed Dragon and the whole Armed Dragon archetype with that as well. On a similar note, these also turbo into level 7 dragons. That just is the lack of critical mass of good level 7 dragons. Maybe if Tempest goes to 3 again, something like that, you could make a deck out of these, because going into Romulus with the Arsenal Falcon and having a Sephiroth on the graveyard is insane, because then you have basically access to your whole Dragon engine and you can play a completely different deck, but sadly there isn't a critical mass of good level 7s for this to work yet. So now that we went over all of the main deck engines which I'm playing right now, all of the potential engines which you could play right now if you prefer another playstyle, and all of the future engines, shout out to Armed Dragons, I love these cards. Let's take a look at an actual combo tutorial. But because I say it so often, Dragons is a very non-linear deck, and a lot of combos won't help you all too crazy. What in my opinion is going to be way more helpful for you guys is to have an overall priority chart on what to do with the combos, where you want to put your resources into on a regular basis, what some things might be which you don't want to go into, for example, when to not resolve certain effects, when you maybe want to put your priority elsewhere because you have a certain non-engine tool. All of those things we'll be taking a look at in the next part of this combo tutorial / dragon guide, whatever it's going to be called. So the very first thing which you always want to resolve in all of your dragon combos is, no matter what you do, no matter if you go for Seal or if you go for Borderland, is that you want to resolve your Magnamut and resolve your Lobelian on the board. At least the way I play, this is from a seal enjoyer's point of view, is you always want to get out the Branded Beast of the Rebellion and then in the end phase search a Jerusalem, because this is already a double pop which plays so well into both Kashtira and all of the sprite variants. Against runic variants, there is a call to activate Regent out of the deck with Rebellion and then search Baldrake. Baldrake is way better disruption than the double pop because you don't really get a double pop against them because they would just chain their quick spell to protect that. And Baldrake is just really good against all of the Life Twin cards or all of the Link monsters they play, be it the Life Twins or Evil Twins, like I said, or the Furhire Link 2, just banishing that with the Baldrake is really good. And then Regain not only gives you more value in a very value-centric matchup, being the Runics, but it also plays better in the long run because most of the time they will have the destruction against the Regain / the Branded Beast. So if you first go for the Regain and then you get that popped in the opponent's turn, then you have the ability in your turn 2, or like in the turn 3 in general, to activate Branded Beast out of the deck with the Rebellion. And then in the end phase, if they didn't have the destruction, you can at least get the Branded Beast and the Branded Regain on the board again, forcing them to only destroy one with the destruction if they have that already. If they have destruction every turn, like if they break your board and then if you play again and then in their next turn, so be it. But this just overall plays better in the long run because runic games probably most of the time will go into a turn 4, turn 5-ish play anyways, unless someone scoops very early. So not only is it better disruption because Baldrake just plays better against that, it's also more value not only in your turn, but also in a long run over like turn 3, turn 4, turn 5. But don't be too focused on just search Jerusalem and get Branded Beast. You always will have to think on the fly. For example, if you already have a lot of non-engine, you have like 2 Book of Moons, you know, you're against Kashtira, you probably won't be needing that Branded Beast. Get that Branded Regained, trigger it in your turn, get another draw, and have more resources to play. Even if your opponent does have that evenly, you will still have that Book of Moon against the Kashtira, which a lot of times will be a game ender for their turn. Also, for example, if your Rebellion gets Imperm, you couldn't play around that, then you probably want to search the Baldrake in the end phase with the Magnamut if you have enough disruption. Like I said, Baldrake is really good in those scenarios. Turning your Magnamut end phase search always into disruption is such a valuable tool in my opinion. But also don't think too much for disruption with Magnamut. I know it sounds crazy, there's a lot going on, but if you already have plenty of disruption, you play through 2 hand traps, you know you're up against Marinsas or whatever, you have a Book of Moon, you have a Seal, you maybe want to search another follow-up with the Magnamut instead because you know your disruption will be enough against the deck. So these are very important skills which a combo tutorial or guide like this won't be giving you. You will get these skills from just playing the deck extensively and just thinking about your plays. And if you lose, take a look at the replay, see what you could have done differently if the call there was to search for a follow-up because you already had 2 disruptions and the plays the opponent does to those 2 disruption, they lose to your follow-up. Stuff like that will matter so much, getting better, and no combo tutorial or guide in the world can help you there. You just have to play, and get better. In general though, a lot of times these decisions which diverge from the normal play, being Branded Beast, Jerusalem, or Regained Baldrake, will be decided by the matchup you are facing and the amount of non-engine you have, / the amount of non-engine your opponent already threw at you. So the more non-engine you have, the more follow-up focus you want to make your combo play, and the more non-engine your opponent threw at you, also the more follow-up focus you want to make your play, because this is a control deck at heart, or like a mid-range deck. So you always want to keep playing. You probably won't have a board where your opponent, if they don't break it, they will just die next turn, because it's hard to get game on board, because Burrel and Savage is not game, and you cannot really get into game off that alone. You always have to need some sort of follow-up. So just playing for a more control-based playstyle is just inherently super important, and you will just have a very easy time from these 2 standpoints. Like the more non-engine gets thrown, the more control-y you want to play. If you take this as a guiding point, you will get better and better at this deck in my opinion. Just keep in mind, you try to get your Rebellion through as the last thing possible if you want to go for a Branded Beast, of course. You will get the Branded Regain out as early as possible, just so that you can plus of it, not only with the draw, but also to have the nip protection. But if you plan on going for a Branded Beast, try to use the Rebellion after you've already gone through a lot of your stuff, mostly the Seal and the Savage. That way you get protection, or you don't nearly die as often to an Nibiru or an Imperm on that summon / effect. The next most important thing is gonna be to get into that Seal. In my opinion, it's even more important than to resolve Rebellion and Magnamut, but because if you resolve Rebellion and Magnamut, you already have 1/2 of the Seals finished. like it just becomes natural to get into that. So they are basically on the same standpoint, but Lubellion and Magna is gonna be super important as well if you play the Borderland version. Speaking of Borderland, I go over this over Borderland because Borderland's only weakness is being non-engine outs, like think of Dark Ruler, Lava Golem, Sphere Mod, or even just a simple Imperm, and they're way more prevalent if the opponent start their turn with 6 cards in their hand, one of them being an out to Borderland. It is very likely, so by just going for a seal, which not only is less resource intensive, so it loses way less to those blowout cards like Dark Ruler, but it's also arguably a very much stronger disruption and better follow-up. In my opinion, just makes sense to go for this play exactly, and then just use the follow-up and the resources you save from the seal play to go into a Borderland push turn 3 with all of the tools we have. Use the levy to disrupt the opponent and to bait out all of the negates, and then just use the abundance of bodies you have and the recursion durability that dragon combos have to just turbo into a Borderland and then just control the game off that when the opponent already used all of their non-engine. If they top deck a non-engine and still have plays, so be it. You can't win them all, but most of the times, at least in my opinion, this is a way safer playstyle than just going into a Borderland and just praying that the opponent doesn't have a Lava Golem or like a Dark Ruler. It's also very important to keep in mind that resolving your seal is going to be the #1 priority. You don't want to be there without your pants on, however you want to say it, and have a lightning storm on there on the field, and then you don't have anything to bounce with your seal. For example, in a very simplified game state, you always want to have the ability to bounce with something with the seal, even if your opponent forces it out without them having anything on the board. The easiest way to do that is just activate the random boot sector or the random ravine you have in your hand, which you probably searched in the time of going into your seal, and then just have that laying there on the field. Of course, this could be like feather dusted for free or whatever. This is a worth risk in my opinion, because resolving your seal is going to be super important, and if the game state is super simplified where the opponent can just activate a lightning storm and you don't have a savage with it and you have no back row and they will go for the monster effect, resolving that seal search magnum is gonna be super important of staying into the game. So definitely always make sure that you can use seal effect to bounce whenever you need to if the opponent forces it out. The next thing which we want to resolve is of course the tracer to get into our savage. This engine does chew through quite a bit out of your hand, and follow up you'll have to sometimes use ravine, pitch one to get into apps if you don't have it hard draw. If you have it hard draw, you have to sometimes summon it with boot sector out of the hand and then pop the boot sector out of the spell trap zone, which also goes through some follow up. So keep that in mind. This engine will go through a lot of stuff. Boot sector can be very good in a turn 3, and also it does dark lock, so you cannot go through it super early, and you will have to have a seal on board already if you want to resolve your rocket tracer. So you'll always have to evaluate if it's worth it to go for the Omni Negate right now, because the format is so dominated by Evenleys, Lightning Storms, Feather Duster, stuff like that. 99% of the time worth it to put a Savage on the board, but just keep that thinking on the fly in your head there. Do you really need to go for that Savage? You're playing against a Runic version, they're not gonna kill you anyways. Might as well just save the Savage for the opponent's turn and have that additional push with the boot sector, right? But not only can the rockets go into the Savage, of course, they, like I said, can also go into Disparter and all of the other Synchro tools. I'm gonna showcase you guys that later on, so don't be too stuck on just going into a very standard Seal Savage branded beast. There's more to be done with this engine. And sometimes getting into that rocket engine can be even more important than resolving that Lubellion Magnum. For example, you're siding anti-spell, you're siding like a floodgate, which you know is an auto win against the opponent's engine. So protecting that floodgate, that anti-spell, that goes match, whatever, with the Savage can be an auto win. If that is the case, it might be the better decision to just, if you can only go for a Savage or a Lubellion Magnumid, if you can only go for one of them, sometimes it's going to be better to just go for the Savage. For example, right now, anti-spell against Kashira, it is so strong. If you can protect that anti-spell with the Savage and you have a Book of Moon to deal with like the one Fenrir they have, this might be the better play to just go for a play like that. This is the thinking on the fly thing, which is so important with Dragon Link and basically all of the other decks in the game. Why I'm not a huge fan of like these combo tutorials, but because these combo tutorials don't teach you those things exactly. So I'm trying to give you guys all of the information about all of the engines, how they interact with each other, with non-engine against the opponent engine and stuff like that, so that you can make these educated guesses or like educated plays, but by forsaking the standard things which you want to do, because the gameplay, the game asks for a way different approach right now, just because certain things interact in a certain way, and having an Omni Negate to protect floodgates is one of those things. It can be a very good thing and sometimes can be a very game-winning thing. And recognizing those game-winning plays is gonna be super important. It's gonna give you guys those extra win percentages. And like I said earlier, sometimes you won't want to even go into a Savage and you just want to straight go into a Baron. It's more disruption, it's even more follow-up, not only with saving the boot sector, but because if Baron leaves on the field, you have a pop, you can use Baron to tag out on the standby phase, stuff like that. Just keep that in mind as well. Most of the time you will go for those things if the Bystial is not really good in that matchup exactly. So if you already have your Lubellion resolved, you already have the Seal on board, you already have a way into the Tracer Engine, what do you do with Romulus? With Ravine, exactly, you go for the Levy hand trip. More often than not, you will only go for this if it's hard drawn, because the amount of times that you have enough bodies to go into Romulus / Seal, you have the Bystial package already stand up, you have a Rocket Engine already placed there, so that's 3 cards already, and then you still need a discard, and you still need a Sacred in the graveyard as well to get the Levy. So this is like a card which requires like 4 cards out of the hand, but this sometimes happens. It's a card game, things like that happen. Like I said, also you can hard draw the Levy, so it will definitely come up, not all too often, maybe like 20% of the times. And you will have to know when to go for this and where the synergies with the deck lie there. And because a lot of times this trade for Levy hand trip will require 1 discard, you only really want to go for it if the discard is something bad. For example, going first, you have the Dark Ruler. You'd rather trade this Dark Ruler with a hand trip from the opponent. But if you have a Book of Moon, for example, or even Imperm, you'd probably rather save this Imperm than going for a Levy hand trip and then just search the Levy in turn 3 to break the opponent's board and have more resources that way. Because like I said earlier, a 1-for-1 trade is not really all too crazy because it basically just trades 1 card with 1 card from the opponent, and because you're going first and the opponent is going second, they will have 1 card more anyways, so you'd much rather take a very tempo heavy 1-for-1 trade than just a very card advantage focused 1-for-1 trade, because like I said, the opponent is probably gonna have more cards in their turn than we have in our turn, just because the way our deck combos through quite a bit cards already and then gets those cards in the opponent's turn back. But there are combos where Levy hand trips can be very insane. Definitely comes together with the whole Savage Disparta Seal thing. If you have a Levy on top of that, it can be very, very nasty for the opponent. To conclude, an overall basic optimal turn would look something like this. You make a Seal, you resolve the Rocket Tracer, you make a Savage. Now you have Seal plus Savage to protect our Lubellion summon from a Nibiru or an Imperm, and then the Lubellion would get a Regained or Burn Speed on the board, and then we have everything which we want. In the end phase, we search Druid's Worm or Baldrake, depending on what we go for, depending on what we have, and then we control the game state of this board alone, and that's usually how you win your games. So we're almost at the end of the video. I hope you guys enjoyed this amazing journey as an introduction to Dragon Link. As with all of the decks in Yu-Gi-Oh! You will just have to keep play to get better, but in my opinion, this is gonna be a very good start to get to know the deck. And to all of you guys who already have some sort of knowledge about the deck, I bet I could teach you a few things here and there, especially the comboing off and the test hands in the end of the video. Hopefully could help you guys. I'm gonna try to get some more content on that note. Of test hands and just playing, similar to the replay analysis that I did a while back, more for you guys. But because I'm currently not playing a lot of online Yu-Gi-Oh! Because I'm just not feeling it right now, it's gonna be tough. Maybe I'm gonna take my smartphone and my stand to locals and then I'll record some games there. I can go over these. I will definitely keep you guys updated on that so that you can get some more gameplay, because now that you got a whole instruction of how I view Dragon Link, it's probably just gonna be the repetition of playing, or seeing me playing, which will give you guys the most knowledge. So, for now, class is dismissed. You guys are free to leave. Professor Sunreis out. Peace.